slow out of the gates. This is why we've seen Boss Sly have a place in the metagame, because these decks are often starting on a turn 3 Courser Crew Fix or a turn 3 Heroes downfall. That's not the kind of draw you want against Ivan, that's for sure.
Both players going to keep their opener. Our finals is underway here from Oakland, a Temple of Triumph. This is the first land that Ivan will play. Take a look at the top card. Leave it on top, we believe, consulting the grip here. Looks like he is still deciding. Justin wondering the same thing. This must be a tough decision. Trying to find the pieces for this deck. And he is going to place that on the bottom. He will pass the turn back over to Porchas. Porchas will draw a card. He has a copy of Sandstep Citadel, and he will just simply pass the turn back. Jen will draw. A Dragon Mantle is what he's found. Prone Crusader. Excuse me, a Monastery Swissbeard. A card we haven't seen a lot from him, actually.
Oddly enough, there's 4 copies in this deck, and we've seen it very infrequently.
Yeah. Does he have a second land? Yes. Mystic Monastery, pass the turn back. Porchas will play a Thoughtseize. You're not going to find a Jeskai Ascendancy, you'll find a Jeskai Charm, along with a Defiant Strike, a Seeker of the Way, or Traction Helix, and a Dragon Mantle.
Pretty low power hand, so good for Ivan to get Thoughtseize at this spot rather than somewhere else. I suppose this is between Dragon Mantle and Seeker of the Way, but I am just guessing.
Much like most of his opponents have this weekend.
I'm just guessing.
If I had Thoughtseized Ivan in like round 1 and see that hand, I'd be like, oh, okay, so like I probably just gonna beat him pretty easily then.
Well, the Retraction Helix is the giveaway.
Well, it could just be a fun enough little bounce spell in your heroic deck.
I guess that's possible. But then there's the Mystic Monastery. I don't know. I think that
my gears are turning.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I'm thinking something is up. There goes the Seeker. Porchas with a Forest, pass the turn back. He does have another copy of Thoughtseize in his hand. Jen will draw a card. It's a Springleaf Drum. He will play that. That will trigger Prowess. Let's see what else he's got here. It looks like maybe a Dragon's Mantle. Absolutely. That'll trigger Prowess yet again. Also draw a card. That's a copy of Mana Confluence. That's a land. It's an attack and potentially a pump here.
Yeah, curious to see Ivan not want to use the Defiant Strike right now, if he's planning on just pumping in. Feels like he just needs to be cantripping towards action.
I think there's a shot he does play it. He's just going to pump instead.
Okay.
So just push through some damage. Be 4 damage total. He'll take 1, of course. See both players counting here. Make sure the correct damage is dealt.
Is a drum, a mantle, a pump, and a base power of 1.
So both players making sure they're on the same page. Can get a little confusing out there. Pass the turn back over to Porchas here. Porchas will draw a card. Again, he does have another copy of Thoughtseize in his hand. He's also got a copy of Hostilities in the grip.
I don't know if he has a 3rd land.
I don't know if he does either. Well, he's got a Thoughtseize, so he's going to cast that. The cards, well, he knows them all. He's going to take Jeskai Charm.
Yeah, it's funny. If Justin's missing land drops, the Jeskai Charm is just too much damage.
Yep. Also, just putting something back on top, too, could be a disaster.
Yep.
The draw there is a copy of Favorite Hoplite, it looks like. So just taking a very boring beatdown approach this game.
Yep.
It's time for an attack. Yep, moving in on the mantle.
And I like this line here a lot from Ivan, because Justin's best case scenario, because he's playing Abzan mid-range, is he untaps and has a removal spell. So having a second creature play and leaving all of your resources back in your hand is awesome.
Yeah.
You don't really care about getting Thoughtseize because Justin just dies. So
why cast a spell?
Yeah, why bother? Just squeeze as much out of this Dragon's Mantle as you can.
That's what it looks like he's trying to do. Looks like Porchas did not draw a land. Yeah, he's beat. He's going to pack it up. Ivan Jen going to win game number 1 here. No Ascendancy necessary. Just got a combo up a game here very quickly over Abzan midrange.
And keep in mind, Ivan was able to generate a kill. Now, that was against no resistance, basically, but was able to kill very quickly without the Ascendancy.
We're back to the booth. I'm going to get a little prop ready here. you go ahead and explain the rules.
Cedric will ask you a question. Tweet your answer at SCG Live and hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responses, one will be selected at random for an entire year of Star City Games Premium content. It's about accuracy and not speed, so don't worry about submitting your answer first, just accurately. And please keep in mind that this giveaway is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com. The Twitch TV is in no way affiliated with giveaways or contests on his stream.
I'm going to have you grab right here. I'm going to grab here. And you guys have to tell me what this is a picture of. Pretty easy question, I think, for 12 months premium.
And we don't mean a playmat. We mean the
you
art
can't-
that's represented on this
Don't
playmat.
say that. You have to tell us
Don't be
what it is.
clever. Don't try to be clever. What's the magic card that this image is derived from?
Hashtag SCG Premium.
That's the question.
Make sure you're following at SCG Live. We'll announce the winner at the conclusion of our final round. You can get this playmat at Grand Prix, New Jersey. If you're not going, you're doing it wrong. We're going to head back to our match. We'll take a look at the sideboards here. I don't know. Porchas does have some decent options here in two Bob Blight and a Race, a Hero's Downfall, 2 Murderous Cut, Liliana Vest, Tunis of World Wakers, 3 John Sorrows, a Doom Blast, and 2 copies of Read the Bones. He's got more interaction than most people.
He's got a lot of very good options here. The 3 copies of Drown in Sorrow, the 2 copies of Murderous Cut, the additional Hero's Downfall, the Erase, and the Bioblights are all big upgrades. I like a lot of his sideboard for this matchup.
Well, Jen, this is the 6th time that we've looked at his sideboard, and again, not a lot has changed. Now, the last couple of matchups, we've seen multiple copies of Erase come in because of Doomweight Giants, but they're not really here, so.
I could see bringing in some negates. I could see bringing in the Disdainful Stroke. The Johnny's Presence seems fine against a deck that's packing a lot of expensive removal spells. But light sideboarding, again, Ivan needs to keep the engine intact.
The engine last game was just beatdowns. Some cantrips, the use of Dragon's Mantle to power through a lot of damage. Typically, you see that reserved for decks like Boss Sly. Not this Jeskai Heroic combo deck, but that's what makes this deck very appealing, is it can just play a normal game. And that's exactly what it just did. Porchas' draw wasn't great, though. He did have 2 copies of Thoughtseize, but some mana issues and just some rather easy beatdowns for Ivan. Not reliant on a single piece.
I think Justin kept a good hand there.
I do too.
Just, sometimes you just don't draw land number 3 on time.
Well, game number 2 will be underway here shortly for you guys at home. If you are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, StarCityGames.com Open Series here in Oakland, California at SCG Live. Hashtag SCGOAK for your tweets all weekend long. Nick Miller joining us in the sideboard along with the rest of the SCG Live crew. Got to give Nick a shout out. He was telling us about this deck pretty early during the day yesterday. And it was finally when he beat Vidianto Ajay in a backup match that we were going to try to potentially move to. That's when it kind of all sunk in.
Yeah. Something I like a lot in Justin's sideboarding here, not only does he have a lot of great cards to bring in, he's got a lot of trash in his deck too that he can easily take out. I think all of his Planeswalkers stink in this matchup. There's some easy cuts, so I think his deck just becomes much, much better post-board.
Those Planeswalkers are a bit slow.
A little slow. You want to tap out for Elspeth and make some tokens?
No.
You want to go ahead and do that? All right.
Well, he does get 3 of them.
He gets 3 of them. That's pretty good. That's a lot. It's a lot of tokens.
Elspeth not looking as powerful now, if this is a thing that people are doing.
I think Elspeth's gone down in power quite a bit in the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of flying in the format. I think there's a lot of matchups where Elspeth just isn't that impressive. Making some tokens just isn't that powerful. I think Elspeth is best when it's backed up by a bunch of counter spells, because it's a win condition onto itself and can also clean up some pretty big boards. But in a matchup where it's a bunch of creatures and removal spells, I think that Elspeth is not the best performer.
Well, it's not great against this Jeskai Heroic combo deck, I can tell you that much.
Yep, it's not very good against Jeskai aggro. I don't think it's a great performer in the Abzan mid-range mirror match.
Don't tell Relax that.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. It just doesn't seem like too often what the games are about, though it can come down to that.
Porchas will be on the play this game. See if he can tie things up. Jen, 1 win away. It's been one heck of a tournament for him either way.
And this is a matchup where Justin needs to be very aggressive with his mulligans. He needs specific tools.
Pretty fast keep.
Can't just be lands and spells.
Jen will keep Temple of Malady, We think he's going to keep. Yep. Top card's going to go to the bottom. Jen will draw a card. Just copy a favorite hoplite. There's Temple of Triumph. So take a look at the top card. That one, we have a decision to make. You do see he's got a copy of Jeskai Charm in his hand. That card's going to go to the bottom. Porchas. We'll untap and draw. There's a forest. This is a Sylvan Caryatid. Jen will draw. Mana Confluence. Favorite hoplite. Springleaf Drum. A little bit of damage, of course, due to Mana Confluence. He will go down to 19. And that's going to be it for his turn. Porchas will draw. This is almost certainly a land, but it looks like he may want to play a different one. He may lead off with a Courser instead.
Yeah, it looks like he has Courser and just, of course, wants to see if there's a land on top first.
Thoughtseize on top is pretty good. That is a Temple of Silence. Leave that there.
Well, now this is the big test is, does Ivan have his Ascendancy?
Yep.
If he sneaks into play, Justin doesn't have that many ways to get off the table. He's got his 2 copies of Butter End and a sideboard at Erase.
Well, see, the neat thing about Magic, Patrick, is you draw a card every turn.
To draw step? And
yeah.
This was the draw step, I'm assuming?
So that's really cool, because you draw a card every turn. And I believe... Well, I thought his draw was Ascendancy. Okay, it was a Mystic Monastery. I take it all back. They do look a little alike, but he's going to go Chasm Skulking instead, and we're going to take a look at that bad boy. 3 mana 1/1. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this thing, and when it dies, you get a bunch of little sweet creatures.
Yep. You better kill this thing. It's another way to go off.
This deck draws a lot of cards.
Yep.
Of course, you're going to come into the red zone.
I mean, this is Justin's whole turn. He just has to kill this straight up, right?
I would want to. I would want to kill this. I understand. I guess, I mean, his turn can be Thoughtseize plus kill Chasm Skulker.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's a really good turn. Because he was going to draw a lot of cards this turn. You see Dragon's Mantle, Retraction Helix, a Guided Strike, and a Jeskai Charm. So fortunately for Justin, there's no Jeskai Ascendancy just yet. It was actually a Mystic Monastery that he drew. City does want to take there, though. I do agree with you, though. I think you have to kill the Skulker.
Probably cut him off of a Dragon's Mantle here. Ivan's hand's not great. And, okay, going to go take the Retraction Helix instead.
Both are a little scary, though. Dragon's Mantle does cantrip, and he does have a favorite hoplite out there, so I'm going to play a Temple. Top card is Murderous Cut. Yeah, I imagine he's going to leave that on top. He's actually let the Skulker live. Now, what's interesting here is that he does have a copy of Abzan Charm.
Yeah, I was starting to piece together that's Justin's line of play here. It's just to let this get big and eventually exile it.
Now, that's a little risky, of course, just because of a card like God's Willing.
Exactly. Justin's taking a very greedy line here. It could be worth it, but if Ivan draws a copy of God's Willing and can protect this Chasm Skulker, it's a disaster for Justin.
There's a Dragon's Mantle, and I do like the diversification a little bit here. Looks like he's going to try to make 2 big threats. Here's a Hero's Downfall. He's going to go after this. Okay. That's going to resolve. Here's an attack. Looks like we have a Defiant Strike. So, a little trigger action here. Draw a card, a little bigger. So some damage will come across. Just passing of the turn. Nothing too exciting that turn from Jen.
Yeah. The big issue here is just, is he able to find God's Willing to protect from this Abzan Charm?
And Hostility is the top card. You did mention it right at the top. Porchas does have a lot more ways to interact than anything we've seen from Jen. Anything we've seen from any of Jen's opponents.
He has good, cheap stuff and then powerful, expensive stuff. We have not seen that mixture yet against Ivan.
There's a Temple of Silence, and Hostility is going to stay on top. Well, actually, it looks like it's heading to the bottom here. So let's take a look at the top card now. It's a copy of Sylvan Caryatid. How do you feel about that scry at the bottom?
Well, Justin's just looking for more action because he thinks he has the game relatively contained and doesn't want to allow Ivan to draw out of it. But I still think an hostility seems like a good insurance policy to have access to.
Siege Rhino going to come in. A little drain and gain, of course. Draw a card. Trigger the Skulker. Don't have a great look at Jen's hand outside of that Jeskai charm that we've known about for some time. Here's the attack. And it's just going to come through. Porchas is at a relatively high life total at this point.
He does know about he does know about the Jeskai charm.
Mm-hmm. Carry out of the draw. Top card is another copy of Siege Rhino. Here's an attack for 6. Jen going to go down to 5. Or just pass a turn back. Still has that Obzon Charm in his hand. Draw a card. Chasm Skulker will trigger. Jen's draw not as explosive as we have seen in the past.
Yeah, no Jeskai Ascendancy and no real busted heroic opening either.
And now the Skulker's on defense. Charm's going to go after it. God's willing to protect. This is kind of what you talked about.
This was the risk of pursuing this line of play.
So, little scry action. That card goes to the bottom very quickly.
I mean, Justin can just take the fairly straightforward line of play of just send an attack in and hope that Siege Rhino is good post-combat, which is pretty likely. But then something like Disdainful Stroke starts to matter.
Little scry action here in just a moment. We'll take a look at the top card. It's a copy of Obzon Charm. Shrug his shoulders, get in the red zone. Ivan knows you have Rhino. Justin knows he has Rhino. We all know he has Rhino. See if it's going to be good enough.
Ivan does have one Disdainful Stroke in the sideboard, so that's his answer to this scenario. He can block the Siege Rhino, kill it, fall to 3. Disdainful Stroke the Siege Rhino that Justin has, and hope that he can cobble together some defense on the following turns.
Jen trying to figure out what's the best way to block in this situation. Looks like he's going to be heading for a Jeskai Charm. We'll see if he wants to go lifelink mode or perhaps put something on top. He's going to put the Courser on top.
Yeah, he needs to keep Justin off of drawing the Obzon Charm if he can.
Well, Porchas knows exactly the best way to work his way around this, I believe, which is Murderous Cut your Chasm Skulker before damage happens.
Yes.
He can sign all 4 trample damage over to Ivan then, because it's not being blocked, and then cast the Siege Rhino for the W. I think he sees that interaction here quite easily. Yes, he does. Yep, and that should be lethal.
Getting out the squid tokens, but that's not relevant here. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I mean, hey, we want to give the squid tokens their debut on camera. I don't think
That's the first time.
That's got to be the
first
first time. So, give them a little workout. That's fine.
Well,
Game 3 it is.
Yeah, we're gonna play a third and final one, and we should really, given what we've seen. I think everyone wants to see one more game of this Jeskai Heroic deck anyway. So both players going to take a look at the deck list and get ready to go.
You can see the recipe, though. I mean, Justin touched him up that game pretty badly. That game was not that close. And you can see the mixture of early disruption, a clock, and then removal spells. That's how you do it.
We're going to take a look at our 2014 Open Series schedule, just the remainder of it, because I got a feeling things are going to change now. I didn't know what to expect from our Columbus show. I think I know now, though.
Well, not only is this deck explosive, clearly powerful, it's also cheap.
Yeah.
No mythics in this deck, and I think all the rares are just lands.
Yeah.
So,
nothing crazy going on.
Yeah, I think you'd expect to see a lot of this in Columbus, where we're going to be next weekend. We're going to be going to the Legacy Grand Prix in New Jersey the following weekend, me, you, and Matthias. Then the Open Series returns to Richmond, Atlanta to close out November, and then the Pacific Northwest, an Open in Portland to start off December, then the Invitational in Seattle, and then the Players' Championship the following weekend, December 20th and 21st.
We'll be closing it out in Roanoke at the Star City Games Game Center, so that should be a lot of fun. Columbus next weekend, though. You and me will be flying over to the best state ever in Ohio, and I have a feeling we might see some more of this Jeskai deck next week.
I would have to imagine so.
Yeah, where we might have not have thought we would have seen it otherwise. So, as you mentioned, there are definitely ways to adapt to this deck. A card like Magma Spray seems like it's quite good against this sort of strategy, and there's probably some more inventive ways that we haven't thought about just yet because we're just kind of all taking it all in like you guys are right now as far as this combo deck is concerned. But, we'll see what the shelf life is on this deck. Is it easy to hate out, or the flip side could happen is when now the great players know that this deck exists, your Jerry Thompsons of the world, who are great at, taking a deck and an idea and really melding it into something perfect. We saw him do that with Dark Depths Thopter combo and Extended many years ago. That's when things get really scary because I feel like we identified cards that can go, like Jeskai Charm. Maybe this deck needs an additional land. Maybe the creature beasts can be a little bit better. I have not been impressed by Lagana band Trailblazer.
Sure.
But there seems like, the core idea is very good. And now there's a little touch-up work.
You need a critical massive creature, so even if you had to, and some of them had to be cheap, so you may end up playing some stinkers. I agree with you. The Trailblazer has not been that impressive, but you might just need a certain density of that kind of stuff to make the deck function. A card that also stands out to me as being potentially good against this deck is Spirit of the Labyrinth, which has seen basically no standard play.
Okay.
But it's very powerful against Dragon's Mantle. It makes Defiant Strike way more awkward, and Ascendancy, of course, you can't go off in nearly the same fashion as you can uncontested. So that's a card that people think about for modern and legacy play, which makes a lot of sense. There's more cantrips, there's more combo decks that draw a bunch of cards in one turn, but we might see a little bit of that card, I think, in standard in the upcoming weeks to try to fight this Ascendancy deck.
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. There are going to be some changes to sideboards and main decks and all that stuff now, I think, to fight against this thing. We don't know how much of it we're going to see next weekend, but it'll be a non-zero amount.
Yeah.
That much we can be sure of. Especially if it hoists the trophy.
People do get very hung up on the deck that happens to win the tournament, but regardless of what happens here game 3, I think Ivan's done a lot to change standard.
Though I do agree with you, Justin's deck is very well situated, I think, for this matchup, given what he's playing. He's got ways to interact.
Exactly. We've seen people cut utter end for things like Silence the Believers, for example. The fact that Justin has interaction against the card Jeskai Ascendancy itself is a huge deal.
You see behind Ivan some of his friends, the store owner there from Versus Games, game store based out of California, based out of San Francisco.
This is a big match. I mean, this is a big game right here. It's not only for the title, but it's about, the significance of the whole thing.
Yeah.
The difference, when you have a new deck like this, it's coming out of the woodwork for the first time, it's creating a buzz, the perception of everything once it's said and done, very different first place versus second place. And I'm sure Ivan wants this one pretty bad.
It's been such a great run. He doesn't want to come up with second place.
Yeah, you don't want to come in second.
And we will see if he can do it one more time. Justin's draw that second game was very good, though.
It's great.
Very, very good. Hard game to lose all interaction.
Yep. The Open that I won many years ago with a deck that was off the radar, I would not have remembered it nearly as fondly if it was a second place finish. Whereas the decks where the Opens where I was just playing like any random old deck, top 8s, top 4s, they all kind of feel the same in retrospect. But when you're doing something different, first place means a lot.
Jenny going to take a long look at that opener. He's going to keep Porchas. Draws up his 7. Going to give it some thought here. Looks like he's good as well. Game number 3 here of the finals underway. It's a copy of a Chrome Crusader, Public Enemy number 1.
Yep. Though now, keep in mind, Justin with a lot of copies of Bioblight and Drown in Sorrow, so he's not going to get run out of the gates by this card in the same fashion that his green-black Constellations opponents did.
It's a simple attack for 1. Porchas down to 19. The follow-up is a copy of Favorite Hoplite, along with a Temple of Triumph. Take a look at the top card. Top card goes to the bottom very quickly. Porchas will untap and draw. A Forest, a Sylvan Caryatid. His draw for the turn was a copy of End Hostilities. Jen quickly untaps. He has a copy of Retraction Helix in hand. He attacks. Will there be a block? That's a mighty fine question. It's tough to block in this situation. Yep. That's what makes this deck so appealing.
And I like running a no blocks here because 2 damage is probably not going to make or break whether or not you lose. And the Caryatid, I would assume, is really valuable for Justin. I mean, he has End Hostilities in his hand.
That's a 3rd land. That's a Jeskai Ascendancy. It's getting troublesome now.
Yep, and Ivan has Negate in hand if he gets to untap. Justin's in a lot of trouble.
There's a Forest. That's another copy of Sylvan Caryatid. Pass the turn back. Jen will untap.
The Caryatid here is curious because if Justin has the 4th land in hand, it means his plan is something other than casting End Hostilities next turn. He might have to just do this because he needs the mana to cast End Hostilities, but he has a Plains in hand.
Sure.
So I'm interested to see what his intent is.
Battlefield Forge the draw. There's a copy of Johnny's Presence too, so pretty well actually against mass removal effect.
Yes, he is very well situated against End Hostilities.
Let's see just where he wants to go, though. This is where things get a little bit difficult. Here is a Johnny's Presence. A couple of triggers.
With Negate in hand, he can afford to be very aggressive doing some spells for value, looking for the combo, because you see he has Retraction Helix in hand. Because he has insurance against a Drown in Sorrow or an End Hostilities, so he can afford to be a little liberal, just firing off some spells here, because he's so close to finding the kill.
Discard Mana Confluence. Everybody's going to get a little bit bigger here.
Just tracking, these are all Ascendancy dice that you're looking at here. So these are not permanent.
Attackers.
Burr, 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 burr. So yeah, the Crusader is 3 power.
The rest are 2 for now. Did you see Johnny's Presence? A couple of those. The sideboard.
And so at this point, I think Justin can afford to throw 1 block out there because he doesn't need the 2nd Caryatid to cast End Hostilities next turn if that's the plan. In fact, it looks like he's offering up a chump block.
Yeah.
Which is a very loud indicator of what's up.
Damage is dealt, pass the turn back. Couple of cards. One of them is a negate. Porchas is going to draw. Sorin Solemn Visitor is what he found. There's a land.
I think Justin now realizes exactly the danger that he's in.
And Hostilities, no siree Bob. That will be negated. We'll see if it triggers Ascendancy. It will. Draw. Discard Battlefield Forge very quickly. Creatures will untap, as will everything else.
And Justin's at 13, and that's not a lot of life.
That was a quick draw of a Dragon Mantle. Trigger.
I mean, this is so much damage. There's no other way to... He's not even going infinite, and this is just so much damage.
Yep. We're not even going to draw on discard,
yeah,
are we?
Neither drawing nor...
don't even need it. Yep, there's an Johnny's Presence. That's your Retraction Helix. That's a lot of targets.
Any random spell works here.
Yep.
Because the Ascendancy is 3 times... It's an extra 14 points of damage or something ridiculous.
Yeah, he gets another soldier every time he does this, too. That's going to go up. That's going to go up.
That's why Ivan's been really careful about his triggers. He's shortcutting now because he knows he just has the win.
Yep. I don't even think he drew a card off the Dragon's Mantle.
No, he's not even bothering to do any of this. He has the kill.
Cast a Retraction Helix. Pump this up. You see he's doing the math right now. How much damage I take? And the answer is a lot.
I think the dice are just lethal.
Yes,
Forget
it is.
The power of your creatures.
Ivan Jen, your Standard Open champion here in Oakland.
Unbelievable. The single most impressive Standard Open win I have ever seen.
It's not even close.
Not even close. I don't even know what's second. Yep.
We have a new deck in Standard.
People get ready.
If you don't have your Jeskai Ascendancies and your Crone Crusaders, well, you better fix that right now.
You know,
because we have a new deck.
If you're in Ohio, you're in Michigan, you're in Tennessee or Kentucky, Indiana, you were thinking about driving out to Columbus, you better modify your sideboard here or change your main deck or something, because it is not going to be the same field that it was 2 days ago.
Incredible, incredible stuff. Congratulations to Ivan Jen. He will be in the sideboard with Nick Miller momentarily. That will be a fun winners interview.
Yes. Well deserved by Ivan Jen, too. Just a great run here, and can't say enough about how impressive this deck's been or how impressive Ivan's been. That's the first time we ever saw him really miss triggers, and that's because he knew he was about to become the Standard Open champion.
Yeah, you're dead.
He had it.
You are dead. Unbelievable. Very quickly as we do come back.